So that's better. So last week or 2 weeks ago when I did the Torah study, I went to look at it and the camera was all wrong, and I was down here at the bottom of the screen and everything was up there. So I asked the cantor, I said, how do you fix this? He said, you have to press TS on the little iPad. I said, well, what's a TS? He said, Torah study. Right? We learn something new every day. You what? I don't make the rules. So I wanted to do something a little bit different today, and to kind of turn the Torah study, the textual study, into some moments of reflection and conversation. And I'm doing that because this portion is so rich with stuff. We're never going to get through all this stuff, but this way we can have the text actually talk to us and maybe become a little self-aware about things about ourselves or our families. Does everybody have a text study? Great. No, oh no, okay. So I made 20 of them, I think. Oh, good. Everybody's good. Good. All right. So let's just read the text, and then it comes from Deuteronomy 7. So let's just read the text, and then we're going to look at the different sections of the text and what the text can tell us, not about the Jewish people, but about ourselves.
Are we going to start with the Torah?
Yeah, we're going to be right here. The text is right here. You can read from the
So should I start with the overview?
Yeah.
Yeah. Eikev, because if you follow, continues Moses' farewell address to Israel on the plains of Moab. It moves between two poles, the abundance God promises in the land, and the warning that abundance itself is spiritually dangerous. Central themes include memory, humility, the nature of dependence on God, and the difference between reward-based obedience and love-based obedience.
Right, there's a difference. Reward-based obedience is God as a cosmic vending machine. Right? Oh, I'm going to do this so I can get into heaven. Okay? This is one of the reasons that Jews never really developed an idea of heaven. Right? I mean, we don't, we don't really talk about it. Okay? We may talk about an afterlife, but it's undefined. The rabbis knew that as soon as we create a notion and a dogma of heaven, what happens? You start doing things in order to get to heaven, right? There are many Jews, however, who feel that if you do the mitzvot, it's like a little peanut that goes on the scale to your merit, okay? And that when you die, God looks at all the peanuts and he says, oh, okay, well, look at all the mitzvot he did, okay? That is following the law as a reward-based system, which is very different than love-based obedience. Okay, you probably understand it. So let's take a look at the test of the manna. Everybody knows what the manna is. Does everybody know what the manna is? Okay, right? Right. Okay, so Deuteronomy 8.
And you shall remember the whole way that the Lord your God has led you these 40 years in the wilderness, that he might humble you, testing you to know what was in your heart, whether you would keep his commandments or not. And he humbled you and let you hunger and fed you with manna, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, that he might make you know that man does not live by bread alone, but man lives by every word that comes from the mouth of the Lord.
Now, let's just look at that text for a second. Does anything strike you as bizarre in that text? Anything strike you strangely?
It's teaching a lesson that if we We don't live only by food.
Well, that is the way Moses frames everything.
Right.
Absolutely. God led you 40 years in the wilderness that he might humble you, testing you to know what was in your heart. That's new. Why were the Jews supposed to wander 40 years in the desert?
Because to get over being the slaves.
What happened that it made them to go 40 years schlepping through the desert?
Because
The golden calf, right? The Egel Masecha. Where's the golden calf here? Moses turns this into a lesson. God was testing you, okay, to see whether or not you would pass the test. So, right? There's a big difference, right? This is why when we talk about the book of Deuteronomy, we are talking about a much later book. Now, let me explain that. What are the 5 books of the Torah? Right. Deuteronomy is the last one. Well done, exactly. When was Deuteronomy written? And this is important.
It was written 38 days before Moses died.
That's what tradition wants us to say.
Right.
Precisely. Let's talk about scholarship, because it's going to be important. Scholarship now knows, or is almost certain, that the book of Deuteronomy was written under the reign of King Josiah. Okay? When the book of Deuteronomy was written, okay, and it's alluded to in the Bible, the Jews were now in urban settings. There was several hundred years of what we might want to call Jewish theology to develop. Okay? And they had time to think about these things. And so when King Josiah sponsored the writing of the Torah, if you will, we are talking about the book of Deuteronomy, which was then
When was
King Josiah,
Josiah?
about 700 before the Common Era,
Wow, so that was like
500, 600 years after the Exodus. Ah, question.
I thought it was
So
more than
was
that.
I don't think the Exodus was 1250 BCE, roughly,
Okay.
on a Tuesday.
Okay.
so okay, if it was under the reign of King Josiah, which I do believe you're right, but whatever. Who was keeping the notes?
Who was keeping what?
The notes.
Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, that's yeah. That's a great question. The Torah,
Who's Joanna?
Joanna was keeping it. Joanna's our administrator. King Joanna. Who's keeping? I know Queen Joanna. Who's keeping the notes? This is a really important question. So which is exactly, I had no idea we were going to go in this direction, but I'm going to go in this direction. There are at least 4 different, what you might want to call, contributors to the Torah. And when I say 4 different contributors, it's not just 4 people, it's 4 eras of Torah contribution, okay? I don't want to get into all of them, but what we have is a document which is taken from many different oral traditions. What's the most obvious example that you know of from the book of Genesis? Well, what do you mean, the creation stories?
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, okay, the creation stories, but there's a specific, Noah.
Yeah.
The Noah flood story is almost paralleled to the Gilgamesh epic from ancient Babylon. Okay? And right, so what we've got are many different sources, if you will, that have been turned into Jewish sources. Okay? There are many sources that are specifically Jewish, the patriarchs, right? The matriarchs and the stories of Joseph and Jacob, but there are earlier stories that are taken and turned into Torah stories, if you will. By the time, question?
No, I have a comment.
Okay.
It seems to me that probably the most revealing thing that happened was that God admitted to himself that he had screwed up.
Oh,
Oh,
now that is a midrash. No, it's a midrash. It's a midrash. I know exactly what you're talking about. That's the creation story, midrash. And the creation story is that God made all sorts of different worlds, didn't like them, and so started again. Okay, but that's a midrash. That's not in the Torah. Okay,
No, it's not.
it's not in the Torah. So by the time you get to Exodus, you now have a uniquely Jewish story, don't you? Right? You have the story of Moses and his miracle birth. Okay, and were there influences about Moses and the birth and being taken out of the water and all that? These are relatively common themes. By the time you get to Leviticus, which is in the middle of the Torah, you have no history. There's no history. It's all law about sacrifices. Here's how to do a chicken, right? I'm sorry? It is really a handbook. It's a handbook for sacrifices, precisely. Okay, that was the book right before the book of Numbers. What happens in the book of Numbers, Bamidbar? The account is not so much accountability, but it's the account. It's the travels of the Jews. Okay, that's where the Torah ended. The Torah was not a Pentateuch; it was a Quadrateuch. Okay? Until we have this last book of Deuteronomy. Did you ever wonder how come the book of Deuteronomy is going over all the stuff that we've already gone through? What does Deuteronomy mean? What does it mean? Not quite. It's Greek. Deuteronomy. What's a duet? Two. So same word. And onomy, what is that? Utterance. Deuteronomy is the second retelling of what has happened before. So you have a book now where there's a kind of a theology that's beginning to develop. So going to your question, who wrote it? We don't know who wrote it. It was probably a committee. Okay, no, I'm serious. I'm serious. It probably wasn't. It was a retelling of Jewish history in light of where society was at that time. Okay, that's exactly what the book of Deuteronomy is, which is what makes it so fascinating. So by the time you get to the book of Deuteronomy, it doesn't matter why you were in the desert for 40 years according to the book of Exodus. The important thing is, what does it mean now? God tested you. That's the way the book of Deuteronomy is framing being in the desert for 40 years. So going back to now the reflective question, what's the relationship between hunger and knowledge? Why does deprivation make known something that abundance cannot? And this is where the text begins to ask modern questions. Who's got an answer? This is Saturday morning therapy. What's the relationship between hunger and knowledge in this passage? Anybody? And now we're reading it on a little bit of a different level, aren't we? Anybody?
I was always curious, really, and I mean, I've mentioned this many times before you were on here, that, whoever was writing this here was high on something.
No, I wouldn't say that. Except maybe Ezekiel. No, I don't know that I would say that. No, I don't know that I would say that. I would say that what this particular passage is saying, that God kept us hungry. Why would God have to keep us hungry?
You know what? It wasn't that he's testing. I think he was testing because he already knew the outcome.
Okay.
Ahead of time. He was doing this so that they would find themselves dependent on God.
Right. I think that's where the book of, I think that's where it wants to go. So why does, why does the deprivation, schlepping through the desert, always being hungry, why does deprivation make known something that abundance cannot? Question, answer.
From adversity comes strength.
From adversity comes strength.
You have to solve your problems, use your creativity.
Right. When everything is given to you on a silver platter, you don't appreciate anything until you lose them. Joni Mitchell taught us that in 1968, right? Okay. You don't know what you've got till you've lost it. And it is a very, very important lesson, especially for children today. Okay. As a teacher, and I've been teaching an awful long time, I have seen the evolution of what we might want to call helicopter parents and bulldozer parents who protect their children at every moment, and they won't let them fail, and they won't let them get hurt, and they won't let them bomb out, because that's how we learn. And I think that's right. There's nothing wrong with adversity. Okay, it's where it's where adversity turns you into bitterness. That's different. The interesting thing is that the Jews didn't get bitter because they knew that there was something ahead of them. Okay? Okay. The manna was unfamiliar. By the way, does anybody know what manna is? Anybody? Whatever you want it to be.
No, I have a question.
Yeah.
The Israelites came with sheep and goats, and
Yeah.
then we were given our playbook on all these sacrifices. Why didn't they eat the meat?
Why did they what?
Why didn't they eat from their own flocks? Why did they have to depend on manna?
I never thought of that. I never thought. Well, first of all, I don't know. Look at if there were 600,000 men, according to the Torah, that left Egypt, that's an awful lot of sheep, right? So they would go through it very quickly. But okay, now we're asking all sorts of great questions. Let's go back. Let's go first to the sheep question. They would need the animals for the sacrifices, okay? But the question is good. I can't answer it because I just don't know. How do you live in the desert? That's easy. If you want to go to New Mexico, you see how people live in the desert. Oh, the animals? Oh, there's water. Remember, they were part of the thing that we are taught is that they're traveling in the desert for 40 years. That's a little misleading. Where were they for the majority of those years? There was where? No. They were at Sinai 40 days after they left Egypt, and then they started schlepping around. They were at a place called Kadesh Barnea, which is it's an oasis, right? So there's water, and by the way, people could find water in the desert. Don't ask me how. I have no idea how they did it, but I'm not a Bedouin. Okay, the manna was unfamiliar, and the text says, "Which you did not know." And here's a spiritual question. What role does not knowing or dependence on the unfamiliar play in spiritual formation, in your spiritual formation? Is there a role that not knowing plays?
Yeah.
How?
If you don't know and you can't find the answer to something, if you're a spiritual person, you're going to be asking God.
You're going to be asking God, and that's good. And what's another possibility? Faith, and that really depends on how we define faith. And so having the doubt, having a question, allows us to explore our faith, but it also allows us the opportunity to define what our faith is and what is faith, period. Because it's a really difficult question, and it's different for each person. Okay? So Jewish faith is not easily defined. Christian faith is easily defined. And I'll give you the two words. Anybody, what's the Jewish word for faith? Anybody know? What? Emunah, which comes from the same word as amen, which means I believe. So the question is, when is emunah used in the Torah? Or some variety of the word emunah? After they see something, after they've witnessed something. Whereas the Christian idea is something called pistis, belief in things that you can't prove, can't see, you just have to believe. Two very different systems, okay? Jews are the original show me state. They really are, okay? And then they believe, okay, so fine, so we experience something spiritually, and now we explore, okay, I can take that into my heart, now we can explore what it means, what faith means, individual faith. Good. Okay, now I want to do one more text because I know we're running out of time. I could spend 3 hours on this. Let's read the next text,
Okay.
text 2, please.
Take care lest you forget the Lord your God, lest when you have eaten and are full and have built good houses and live in them, and when your herds and flocks multiply and all that you have is multiplied, then your heart be lifted up and you forget the Lord your God. Beware lest you say in your heart, my power and the might of my hand have gotten me this wealth. You shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth.
This is very insightful. And you can tell that this is a much later text when people had time to think about wealth. Because we know what happens when somebody gets wealthy. What often happens when somebody gets wealthy? What is the text telling us happens when somebody gets wealthy? They think it by their own hand. They think that everything they have not only is by their own hand, but then that very quickly moves into, I deserve it.
So I'm thinking about the person who sees a destitute man on the street, and one says, "There, but for the grace of God."
Okay, okay,
The other one says, "If that were me, I would have pulled myself up by my bootstraps."
okay. Or there's a third possibility.
He's despicable.
He deserved it,
Oh.
right? Right. And I right on target. There, but for the grace of God, go I is like, okay, you know what? I've been blessed in so many things. Fine. The other one, as you said, was well, I said you deserve it. What was the second?
If it were me, I would have.
If it were me, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That's the political byword of the day these days. If somebody is suffering, they somehow deserved it. Okay? If somebody is destitute, they somehow deserved it. Oh, right? And if they're wealthy, well, if you think if you're wealthy, then you think you deserved it. And you weren't.
And look how hard I work.
If I worked hard for it, I deserve it.
Well, that's right. Okay, I got no problem. And the Torah is telling us, because remember, there's a big work ethic in Judaism. Okay, there's nothing wrong with wealth. What there is wrong is thinking that everything that you have is because of you. Because sometimes it's not. It could be where you were born, when you were born. Hang on one second, I got you right there. Rabbi Erica told the great story yesterday, which I hadn't heard in a long time, about Akiva, right? And how he went to the he didn't know how to read Hebrew. These are all stories about him, and how he saw the stone under a well, and how it dripped, and it created a hole from erosion. He said, well, if a little bit of water can do that to rock, then I can learn words of Torah as well. It'll just take time. Okay, so he recognized what he was missing, but he also knew how to get there. So now we're not going to say, well, you don't, you don't deserve to know so much Torah. Well, of course you do, because you worked hard at it. And there's nothing wrong with getting the kavod from it. No, it's a good point. Yes.
I just think that there's a story that a lot of people in here have probably heard before, and it's the idea of someone who is late for a very important meeting, and they're stuck in traffic, and they pray to God, oh my God, if you can just get me out of this traffic, I'll do whatever you want. And then they get into the parking lot, and they say, there's no parking space available, and oh my God, God, please, if I find a parking spot, I'll keep kosher and
Yeah.
Shomer Shabbos and everything all the time. And they're driving around the parking lot, they can't find a parking space, and all of a sudden they spot one, and they say, oh, no worries, God, I got this.
I know.
Found
No,
a parking spot.
right. That's the atheists and foxholes thing. So I'll tell you a really funny story, and then I'll stop. It's a personal story. When my wife and I were on our honeymoon, we were down at actually we were up at the St. Simon's Island, the Brunswick Golden Islands, off the coast of Georgia, really beautiful. And we had an absolutely terrible dinner. It was abysmal, and we were really disappointed. Okay, so we're driving around and we see a sign, okay, for Oglethorpe's. Oglethorpe was a governor of Georgia in 18 whatever, okay? And we see a sign that says Oglethorpe's, and we keep seeing these signs. Okay, well, Oglethorpe Country Club. Okay, fine, we'll go to Oglethorpe's. We don't know from Oglethorpe's. So when we drive in, right, it's a Friday night because we had just come back from Shabbat services. When we drive in, the parking lot is filled. Exactly. I didn't make a prayer. Believe me. Okay. And right in front of the restaurant was the perfect parking spot. It was empty. Okay. So I pulled in, and to this day, we say, when we find a perfect parking spot, we've been Oglethorped. Okay. So that's a little thing that Stella and I do. We've been Oglethorped. But we know that God has nothing to do with parking spots, right? I don't know if you're aware, and I don't know if this has ever happened to you. I have had bar mitzvah mothers and dads get angry at me because it rained. It rained. They got angry. And I try to make a joke out of it, and I say, I'm only in sales and advertising, not management, okay? But a lot of us think unconsciously or consciously or pre-consciously that somehow we can control things that really are not out of our control, because it gives us structure. What the book of Deuteronomy is saying, and I hope you're picking it up, what at least this first part of the passages are saying, is that there is a lot in your control. You have a choice, but ultimately remember where your blessings come from, because they don't all come from you all the time. And that sometimes you're just really lucky. And so the whole idea of tzedakah is sharing blessings, and never, ever saying to somebody you see on the side of the road, pick up yourself by your bootstraps, because that is probably the most unethical thing that a Jew could say. Yes?
Or even worse, to walk by that person and ignore the person.
Right. Although you got to be careful in New York City.
We do that all day.
Yeah, it's hard because it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
Okay, it's overwhelming, and the Torah actually acknowledges that.
Still be aware of it.
Oh yeah.
Have your eyes open.
Yeah.
Yeah, keeping your eyes.
Go to Congress and.
Well, yeah, in my next life.
I just had one quick question because we haven't gotten to it yet.
Please.
I think the word stability that you use here, we haven't gotten to that question yet. What do you mean by stability in reference to this passage?
Show me where you're referring to.
Okay, the third question, sorry. What practices might counter the drift towards forgetting that comes with
Text 2.
stability?
I'm in text 2. Hang on a sec.
Third question. What practices?
What practices might counter the drift towards forgetting that comes with stability? Okay.
If you're successful, you forget how hard it was.
Exactly.
Is that stable? Is that stable?
Yeah, it can be.
Okay.
It can be. obviously we're overgeneralizing here, but when somebody is successful, the house is paid off, the car is working, the kids are healthy, everything is good. There's a certain amount of stability, and over time, you tend to forget where that came from. I mean, look at, I haven't thought, I don't know if you have, I haven't thought about how I got to Boca. No, really. I mean, it was a 40-year journey that brought from here to there. I don't know all of the steps.
Is this the epitome of something, or?
Well, it's the culmination of something, because I'm at this point in my life. Okay, so it's by definition a culmination. Is this going to be the end of the journey? I have no idea. But it's like, I didn't get here on my own accord. That much I know. I had amazing teachers. I failed spectacularly. Okay, I had people who were very supportive. Yeah, sure, I worked hard, but I didn't get here on my own. And I think what that text is telling us is, don't feel so stable all the time. Okay, sometimes you gotta look back on your life and say, how did I get here?
Not because of your righteousness.
I'm sorry?
Not because of your
Not because of your righteousness alone. And this is, by the way, the statement that is saying, you're not being rewarded. You're just lucky. Question.
Well, another question is the common.
Please.
I think that is, it's important to have gratitude when we reach different moments in our lives, or even just ordinary times, just to every moment really be grateful.
And what does gratitude do? What is this is my sermon for next week, by the way. What is gratitude? Think of it from a liturgical point of view. What is gratitude?
Attributing it to God.
Being thankful.
Yes. We're all, yeah. It is putting into ritual something that forces us to recognize things beyond ourselves. So when the Jewish tradition says, and we did it this morning, when Jewish tradition says you have to say at least 100 blessings a day, those are the Nisim B'chol Yom, it's forcing us by ritual to recognize that the very fact that we woke up had nothing to do with us. And so we turned it into a prayer, we turned it into a ritual. Now, I could go on for hours with this, so take this home and read it and talk about it at lunch. Any final questions, comments, criticisms? Keep the criticisms. Write a letter. Great. Thank you.
You did a great job.
Thank you. Where's